Hello there. I want to quickly talk about some changes that are going to be happening pretty soon to my channel. I want to just get straight into it because I want to get the important stuff out of the way first. So for one, I am not graduating, to be very, very clear. Like, not just straight up stopping streaming, but starting pretty soon, as in October 1st is sort of the date that I have put forward. I'm going to be streaming less, so less consistently, and like less streams too. That's the most important thing that I wanted to get out of the way, is that I will be streaming less, so only like 2 to 3 times a week. With that, I am getting rid of the schedule, because the schedule has kind of been like very like binding for a while, and like it's taken a lot of the wind out of my sails, because like there are definitely times where I wake up and I really do not feel like streaming, or like it's a bad time, and like, you know, there are times I have to move stuff around. There's times I get on and I want to play a different game to what I've like promised for that day. And it kind of just takes a lot out of me. So those two things kind of go hand in hand, but I will make sure to do at least 2 streams a week still. That is still something that I want to guarantee, considering how much people have supported me so far and the fact that there are clearly still people who want to watch me occasionally. I wanted to let people know about this like well in advance, just in case that changes anyone's decision to support me. Since obviously the way I'm currently going, I've been consistently streaming 4 times a week for a very long time. Like, obviously, occasionally I'll drop like a day here or there, but occasionally I'll also like add a day in for a specific reason. And just for a really long time now, I have just been streaming without any proper breaks. The last time that I had like any extended hiatus from streaming was, I think, December last year, because of like holiday plans. Ever since then, I've basically been streaming like four times a week, every single week. Once again, with only like a slight bit of variation. And so that's sort of why I wanted to give plenty of time in advance, because obviously if you subscribe with the idea that you're going to get benefits, such as like the ad-free viewing and emotes, you kind of do that with the amount of like usage you'll get out of that in mind. And obviously you're going to get a lot more usage out of that if I'm streaming like more often, more consistently, like longer streams, because you can only ever watch as much as I stream. So the last thing I wanted was for anyone to like subscribe and then for me to like put this out just suddenly like without any like time in advance, and just kind of feel like they've been scammed because they thought that I would be streaming more often. So this is effectively me putting in advance notice, almost like a 2 weeks, although once again I'm not actually like stopping entirely. But the idea is to let people know well in advance, just so that I don't feel like I'm scamming anyone, and that nobody has to feel like they're being scammed because I am not going to be streaming as often. So take that into consideration if you want to consider supporting me or not. I really don't mind either way. So I just felt like that was an important thing to get out of the way. Now, getting into more of the why, streaming is something that I've kind of enjoyed doing for a long time, and it's something that I've been able to do since, you know, my degree in game design isn't really being used at the moment. Nobody is really hiring. So streaming was kind of a convenient fill-in for the absence of a job. And especially last year when I started streaming much more consistently and then eventually reaching affiliate, it was kind of something that I wanted to see if I could turn it into a career at all. But the unfortunate thing is that, just from my experience so far, as well as just looking at the analytics, which, by the way, I looked at the analytics to confirm what I believe to be the case, not the other way around. So I'm not just making this decision based off of looking at the numbers and then getting bummed out by it and then taking some like extreme action as a result of that. Effectively, my stream has been like pretty stagnant for the past little while, and when I actually took a look at the analytics, it kind of confirmed the hunch that I had that things were kind of bleak in terms of channel growth and stuff like that. So yeah, to back this up with a bit of the analytics, which I said I would, this has kind of been like most of my streaming. Technically I started a little bit like earlier in April. As you can see, it's very much as I described. It's kind of been very, very stagnant. This sort of area was back around when I was initially pushing for affiliate, which is why things are like a bit more consistent here, because people like to help out during that time. Like, people like to help out, people like to raid. You tend to get a better average when you're pushing for affiliate because your friends want to help you out, and getting your average viewers up is a very good way to do that. And in fact, just to give you an idea of just how stagnant things have been, in order to reach affiliate, you have to be averaging 3 or more viewers. And as you can see, like over time, even if I change this to something more recent just to see what the average has been recently, so let's say like the past month. As you can see, in the past month of streaming, my average viewers has been in 2.7, so literally less than you would need to initially reach affiliate. And obviously, like, the followers haven't been that much better either. To be very clear, the problem here is nothing to do with, you know, a lack of generosity from people. That is absolutely not the case. And if anything, for the amount of average viewers and followers that I have, people have been very, very generous. I'm obviously not going to get into the exact analytics of that, because I feel like it's very disrespectful to reduce people's generosity to just a number and a statistic. But like, trust me when I say it's been very, very nice of people what they have done for me and the generosity that people have shared with me. It's just the unfortunate truth of the matter is that the idea of making streaming a viable career is very much dependent on having a healthy influx and a healthy growth of viewership. When you're averaging 2.3 viewers or 2.7 viewers, it obviously just makes no sense to expect that small of an amount of people to be supplying your entire livelihood, you know? So once again, just wanted to make that very clear out of the gate, that this has nothing to do with people not being generous enough. Nobody should ever be expected here to make up the difference. Like, unless I've got fucking Jeff Bezos on the line, expecting any sort of livable income out of this is very unrealistic. Like, it makes no sense. So yeah, just wanted to make that very clear as well. I do not blame anybody at all for this being the case. This is entirely just a channel growth issue. I think it is very important to always just put your needs first, and like donating, like giving bits, subscribing, all of that should only ever be if you have that in excess. And I really, really do appreciate the generosity that I have been shown for the past like year and a half of streaming. Like, I can't possibly in good conscience downplay how nice people have been to me. But with that all said, the entire point I was originally getting at is that my channel has been very stagnant. And so even though I initially wanted to see if I could make streaming into a viable career or a viable, even just as like a side thing, like something that would just even justify the time commitment, even if it wasn't a full-time thing, I just wanted to see if I could. But it's been made very clear that unfortunately, even though I do enjoy streaming and people have been very generous, streaming has still, unfortunately, been a dead end for me. Especially for the amount of time that has been dedicated to it. Like, as you can see, the past year and a half, that is 1,026 hours of streaming. That is a lot of time to be dedicating to something that isn't really growing or going anywhere, you know? And so that is ultimately what has motivated my decision to reduce how much I'm going to be streaming in the future. And the other thing, which I'll reiterate, I'm also not going to be putting out new schedules anymore because I just feel that they have been like too binding, like too rough on my mental. And like really, I just don't feel like people even really engage with them at all. I feel like even the people who do watch me just kind of come along if they see me live, but don't really care to know ahead of time if I'm going live. And I think that's fine, and so if the schedule is something that I can cut out, it's something that I may as well cut out. What this ultimately means is that starting on October 1st, streams are going to be a bit more sporadic. I'll still have like a dedicated time window in which I may stream, but the exact days, the exact times, and the exact things that we will be doing on those streams will be a lot more free form, and hopefully as a result of that, I should end up actually enjoying what I'm doing, and hopefully that'll come through in my mood while streaming. And once again, there may also be times where I stream more often than 2 or 3 times a week. Part of the problem here is that the amount of times that I stream kind of has to be dependent on if I even have anything to do. And another problem that I've run into in the past is having to specifically try and pick out things to spend streams on. And in the past, it's led to me even doing some stuff on stream that I didn't really want to do, but I felt like I had to do just to fill time. So having a more sporadic schedule will just allow me to effectively just cut the crap. And if there is something that I actually want to be doing frequently, such as like a new game release, I can just stream more for that specific game release and then just go back to my usual 2 streams a week, such that I am no longer forcing myself to get on stream for the sake of getting on stream. Now, of course, as a result of this, some people might be wondering a bunch of things. Since there are still some stream-related things that I had planned, as well as things that have just kind of been in the air for a while, that I feel like now would be kind of a good time to give an update on. Probably one of the biggest things that have been in the air for a while now is the 3D model. It's something that I was working on for quite a long time and that I said would happen back on November. What ultimately ended up happening with the 3D model is that despite my best efforts, and I got pretty far as well, I just ran into way too many technical difficulties with it in terms of doing the rigging, let alone there was still like a bunch of more complicated technical problems piling up, such as doing the cloak, which is stuff that would require cloth physics. And over time it just became more and more complicated until unfortunately, now I don't really have too much to show for it. Once this video goes out, I think I will just release the model in the state that it's in, just because it is mostly usable and mostly rigged, and I don't want to just leave people completely empty-handed on that. Unfortunately, as for what I can use it for, I don't really have a whole lot, because I don't know how to fix the problems that I'm having, and I just can't really move forward with it. It's just unfortunately kind of been a bust. Not to mention, the rigging process doesn't even account for all the stuff I would have to do to try and make the rig into something that is usable as a VTuber, as well as the physical hardware and like the technology that would be required for me to have on my end, which would be even more of a time and money sink. It's just unfortunately not something that can really happen at this point, and especially given initially it was something that I thought I would eventually be able to justify because of, you know, future channel growth, but as I sort of discussed, my channel has been rather stagnant. So a combination of all of those technical issues as well as the financial costs of all of that have kind of just destroyed any chances there could ever be of completing the 3D model. And what I'm really thankful for is that I didn't attach the 3D model to any kind of like monetary milestone or like donation or sub goal or anything. It was just something that I happened to announce one time thinking that it would be a cool thing to look forward to. So while I am still sad that I couldn't deliver on that, and I'm sorry for disappointing you, and for not delivering on that. At the very least, I can be glad that I didn't unintentionally scam people with that. I'm at least glad that if it's something I have to cancel, it's not something that had some sort of like monetary push behind it, since that would obviously be really shitty. It's just kind of a bummer, is all. So yeah, I've taken the 3D model pretty much as far as I can get it, and I will be releasing it in the state that it is currently in. Unfortunately, that means there will be some issues with it, but it at least kind of serves as a sort of consolation for not being able to finish the full thing. Now, the other thing that kind of coincides with the 3D model was the redesign. In truth, the idea was that the 3D model would implement like a lot of the redesign features, and then maybe later down the line I would make a new 2D model of the redesign as well. But obviously that plan has kind of changed since the 3D model is unfinishable by me, and now that I'm not going to be streaming as consistently. In truth, I don't really think I'll be making a 2D model of it anymore. I won't really be making any updates to this one either. Part of the problem with making new 2D model stuff is it kind of requires the software, and the software requires a price. And once again, I'm not really in a position where I can be going haywire spending on a bunch of these technologies for my stream, which isn't really going anywhere. However, I will still just say I really do still love the new design that I've made. I would still like for it to be my quote-unquote canon design going forward. And like, I would still be genuinely interested in making a 2D model of it. It really just depends on if I ever want to dedicate the time and if I ever have the spare change to spend on the software and all that. But obviously, after what happened with the 3D model, that's not something I want to guarantee. Now, the other thing people might be wondering is, what am I going to be doing with this new time that I have? To get into sort of the more positive territory of all of this, part of the reason I've decided to make this decision now is the recent Durkee Bird Game Jam has kind of made me refine a bit of my love for game development. Ever since the release of the final update of Endless Bullet Heaven, I kind of had, effectively a lot of writer's block, but, in game dev sort of terms. I had sort of like a game dev block where I just wasn't really motivated to work on anything. And part of that is because Endless Bullet Heaven was like such a mess to wrangle with towards the end of its development. But working on the recent Game Jam game has kind of made me refine that it is still something that I enjoy doing, especially for like smaller projects. And so I kind of plan to start picking up more of the game development slack. I want to start maybe participating in more game jams, or if not, even just making more small projects in general. As well as also just in terms of finances, I want to see if I can find stability doing something else, whether that means being employed to do a more conventional job, which is something I'll be able to do now that I'll have more time away from stream, or even just if game development starts going better for me as well. The goal is to try and find long-term sustainability, since streaming has sort of proven as something that isn't going to be sustainable. Maybe this is a hot take, but I do kind of want a future on this earth. But once again, I do want to reiterate, I will still be around. Like I said, I will still be streaming at least 2 times a week, starting October 1st. I'll just also be taking a lot more time away from streaming, so that's more of a hobby rather than something that I'm pushing to make some sort of career out of. I'm not graduating, I'm not going on hiatus, I'm going to be streaming less so that I can do other things as well. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about today. Once again, I really do appreciate the support that people have given me, both past and present. And of course, I hope that people still continue to enjoy my future streams as well, even if there aren't going to be as many of them. These changes are only going to take effect on October 1st, so we've still got a little bit more time before you'll be seeing less of me. It's been such a pleasure getting to do this. Even though I'm sure this video may make everything sound so negative. Truly, I do enjoy streaming, but unfortunately it's just not something that is sustainable in the long term. And on that note, that's where the video ends. Thank you once again for watching. and for just listening to me yap about the future of my channel and streaming and all that. Bye!